So let's see if I can move this away and then make it big. All right. So here we have the spectrum of lucidity, which is the nighttime practice of dream yoga. So one aspect of dream yoga is the nighttime practice, and one aspect is the daytime practice. So lucidity isn't like 100% of dream yoga, just to have that clear. I'm going to make it smaller though, because I want to have an eye on the time. All right, here we go. So here we've got the spectrum of lucidity. So there are 3 phases of dream yoga within the Tibetan traditions, which is recognition, transformation, and liberation. Here we are gaining lucidity, where we have being totally unaware, where we have sleepy awareness and lucidity. Here we have transformation, which is part of Vajrayana Tantra. And this actually has a lot of different practices in it. And then there's the liberation part, which is the Sahajayana part of the Tibetan dream yoga. So these, until the blue one, which I'll go into later, are all mostly practice, really practice. And once you practice these are going to arise naturally. And you can actually practice these, but this is what Alma was talking about, that's not the wisest thing to do, because you really want to have a grounding before you start to do crazy shit and leaving your body and all those kind of things. So basically what you do here, amongst a lot of other things, is the development of a healthy ego, which means we are not killing the ego, but we're also not identifying with it. We are not one with it. In the end, we're one with everything, but we are not solely identified with the ego, and the ego isn't running the show. Our adult self is running the show, let's say. So we need to have a healthy ego, which means discernment before we start to do the more out there practices of dream yoga. So development of healthy ego also contains compassion and courage. So those are things that we are practicing. And here we have like where we start, where everybody starts is ignorance or nescience, which means not knowing. Ignorance means ignoring of the subtle realm, let's say. This is non-lucidity or exclusive identification with form. I think a lot of you probably are already way over here because you are interested in dream yoga. Otherwise, probably you wouldn't have been interested. But yeah, it is one of it's let's say the beginning ray where we start out from. So a little bit about terminology, because you have some words here that maybe you don't know what they mean. So let's just get clear on what everything means. So dream yoga is, if we imagine our consciousness, the manifestation of our consciousness and the unconsciousness, the subconsciousness as a tree, we're working at the roots of that tree. So we are working at the roots with dream yoga. So we're not only transforming the trunk, the roots, but also healing the branches, the leaves, the flowers, and the fruits. So it goes really deep. Lucidity means we merge the consciousness and the subconsciousness. So we become fully present. You know, in all of the spiritual traditions, they say, you have to be present in the here and now. You have to be aware. So that means lucidity. So lucidity is actually a quality that we also bring in the daytime, but now I'm going to speak about mostly the nighttime practice. So lucidity in a dream means that I'm aware of the fact that I'm dreaming while I'm dreaming. And in dream yoga, we weave in both directions. So we take, with the daytime practice, we take the subconsciousness into the consciousness. So that means we're working with our dream symbols while we are awake. But in the nighttime practice, we are bringing the consciousness into the subconsciousness. So that means that we're weaving in both directions and becoming more clear on our subconscious. So what does Tantra mean? Tantra is derived from the Sanskrit root tan, which means to weave, and tra, which means instrument, protection, and liberation. So what are we weaving? All expressions of consciousness into liberation. So basically that's what Tantra is. So you've seen that we're working with Vajrayana and Sahajayana. So this is just a short laydown of where these branches of Buddhism come from. So 5th century before Christ, Theravada was founded. After that, Mahayana. And Theravada you could see as, it's described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead as with the analogy of a poisonous tree. And the poisonous tree represents our you could say our fight, flight, freeze responses, our traumas, our triggers, or grasping and aversion and ignorance. So how Theravada deals with that tree is they go around the tree. They focus on the light and the love and the good, and they avoid the tree. Later, Mahayana was developed. I think perhaps because it was necessary, because it doesn't always work to avoid the tree. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't work. Mahayana was developed, and in Mahayana, the analogy, how it's described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is that it cuts the tree at the roots. So it cuts it down, and so that means it's not only looking for liberation and enlightenment for oneself, but also for others around them. Then Vajrayana, 7th century after Christ, was started. And in Vajrayana, that's where dream yoga is also a part. Vajrayana means you interact with the tree, where you basically face the poison and transmute it. You change it into medicine. So that means that in our own practice, that means that we are facing our shadows, we are facing our fears, and we are getting the medicine from it. And Sahajayana is more advanced part of Vajrayana. So this is actually part of Vajrayana. So these are the three branches are Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Sahajayana, part of Vajrayana, is really the unity consciousness part. This is kind of beyond Vajrayana also, but it comes from Vajrayana, where there is a realization that kind of like there is no spoon or there is no poison. All is a dream. It is the pure realization. So here we have again these 3 phases. So we go from recognition to transformation to liberation. I've just explained it a little bit already. So Vajrayana, it has roots in Buddhism and Bon shamanism. So Bon shamanism, which is a Tibetan form of shamanism, got weaved in with Mahayana and became Vajrayana. So they distill the toxins and transform them into healing medicine. And Sahajayana emphasizes spontaneous, non-dual realization of innate awakening through direct, often poetic, and Antinomian or psychomagical practices. Antinomian means going against the norm. So this is also the Chöd practice that you were referring to before can be part of this, but it doesn't have to be. There are many different things, but they're practices rather than rituals or scholastic effort. So it really goes for that direct experience. And one way that I like to practice it is the overcoming shame game. So it is really working with our shame and seeing in what way I can overcome it so that it doesn't have power over me anymore. So that's kind of like going against the norm, let's say. And that is a liberation. Let me just check if everyone is still there and everything is going well here on the screen. Yes, we are good. Okay, because I'm facing the webinar. Okay, so dream yoga and practicing lucidity is not easy because of the fact that we work at the roots of our subconsciousness, and that's where all of our fight, flight, freeze parts are hiding. And those are hard to face, of course, because they're not fight, flight, freeze for nothing. So that also requires really gentle steps and not going straight for the crazy out there, out of body experience, blah, blah, blah. Because that way we can't take those little parts along that also need to be integrated, let's say. So in order to do that, really the basis is embodiment and pure observation. And they help to heal our subconscious aversion and grasping, ignorance, escapism, and those basically are all contained in fight, flight, and freeze, our nervous system responses. So here we have the entire spectrum again, and I will start now with the first one of unaware. Unaware. All right. I'm right on time. I'm good keeping time today. So unaware means nescience and ignorance. So to ignore. Exclusive identification with form, believing the Maya, and perhaps sometimes remembering a dream. So the willingness to practice dream recall lays the ground for the rest of the spectrum. So I've got a little painting there, and I'll show it a little bit bigger here. Here you see the elephant path, the Samatha meditation way to Nirvana, and you see all the way at the bottom is a depiction of someone who is completely identified with ego and totally submerged in all of the chaos of life and taking everything very seriously and like, oh my God, I have to do this and that and this person said that, oh, no. And it's all very, very serious. And here already starts a little bit of the liberation, and it starts to get calmer and calmer as they do the practice. And in the end, woohoo, they have the liberation. But you see, it's quite a work to get there. So the next phase is sleepy awareness. So I chose to connect it to the chakras because for me it makes sense because they connect. And here we are still a little bit below the Muladhara chakra. So for me, they connect also content-wise of what the chakras represent, the different phases. So here we have sleepy awareness, a limited awareness of the dream state, often resulting in a vague understanding of being in a dream. So in that state, you can influence the dream without full-blown lucidity. And you have more regular dream recall. So this is really when we are, in a dream, we're waking up to the dream. We're like, oh, this is a dream, but still not aware of the fact that maybe I can do some practice in the dream, or that, or that I can stabilize the lucidity, or just not knowing what to do, or maybe waking up straight away, or just losing the lucidity really quickly again. So that is this ray of the spectrum. The next one, we are still kind of hovering below the root chakra. We're still not quite there yet. Lucidity, being aware of the dream, finding out the quality of consciousness of other dream aspects by questioning them. For example, hey, what do you represent? So this is also a fun stage of enjoyment and play and for spontaneous experiments. So one example that I can give here. So about 10 years ago, I shared in a dream yoga Facebook group one of my dreams. And actually, I was in Andrew Holacek's workshop a while ago. And he, apparently this dream has been going around, and he used it as an example. And he was like, so I've heard that somebody had this dream and it's so crazy. And I was like, hey, but that's my dream. I wrote that down in a Facebook group 10 years ago, you know? So anyway, that's this phase, and also a little bit of the anahata phase, because it also involves courage, the heart, courage. So in this dream, I was being chased by a monster. I was so scared. I was like, oh shit, this monster's gonna get me. Until I got lucid and I got my consciousness into my dream, and I was like, oh, this is a dream, so there's nothing to be afraid of. So I turn around to the monster and I say to the monster, well, what do you represent? And then the monster said, how should I know? This is your dream. So in a way, you could think like, is the monster like making a joke, or what's going on there? But I've thought about it quite a while, and I've come to realize that the fact, just because of my other experiences with lucidity, I really believe that this is how it works. The fact that my consciousness came in, and the fact that I didn't have a fear anymore for the monster, made it so that the monster didn't exist, let's say, anymore, because the monster is a representation of some fear that I had, although I still don't know which fear it represents, but it was a representation of something in me. So the fact that I lost my fear and I became lucid also meant that the monster changed, and it went so quick that it was still in its form, but it was totally confused, like, what's going on? So this is a way to deal with dream beings. But the thing is, the dream will end usually quite quickly, and they get very surprised by these types of questions. But also, it can transform instantly different karmic traces, let's say. So that fear was transformed instantly. It wasn't there anymore, because I overcame it, even though I didn't know what I overcame. I did overcome it. And so sometimes we just want to have like the quick healing without needing to know what it's all about. And we can do that, we can do that. But sometimes we do want to know what it's about. We do want to stabilize the dream. We do want to see, what are the elements at play there, and feel into it a little bit more. So in that case, we need to stabilize the dream. So now we are moving to the next phase, which is the stabilizing lucidity, which is where we are moving from recognition to transformation. So now we're starting with the Vajrayana Tantra. All right. Are we all still there? Just having a look at you guys. All right. Hello. Yes, going back to my slides. All right. Stabilizing lucidity. So being able to stay in the dream while lucid. So this is one of the ways. So in order to do this, we need nervous system capacity. Creating safety and a home in our nervous system. So this is kind of, I can explain this with probably every one of you has once seen some action movie in which a bomb exploded. And the main character detonates a house or a building or a bomb or anything. And instead of going like, holy shit, look at that fire, they go put on their sunglasses, detonate the bomb, and they just walk off, and they're super cool. Okay, we kind of need to have that level of cool in the dream. And the thing is that we can't fake it. Because we can't go like, oh my God, I'm lucid. No, I'm super cool. But actually I'm not, because the dream landscape, everything in the dream is made up of my subconsciousness. So if I'm trying to spiritual bypass myself, if I'm trying to fool myself into thinking that I'm really cool while I'm really not cool, the dream is just gonna show that. So there's no way to fake having nervous system capacity in dreaming. So we really do need to practice that. And there are a lot of daytime practices to do that. So that is a huge part of dream yoga, where we really practice staying calm, staying present, staying connected, and allowing ourselves to feel. And I've learned a lot from Irene Lyon in this regard. She's like the top chef of nervous system capacity, I would say. And another thing to stabilize the dream, once we have the nervous system capacity and we don't freak out, neither by nightmarish things or by amazing things that are like exciting us too much, that we can keep our equanimity, let's say. If we get that, then we need movement, interaction, and reminding ourselves of our lucidity. So we need to stay active in the dream, because if we only observe, if we don't do anything, the dream is created by our consciousness. So if we are not anymore participating at all, the dream will usually very quickly dissolve. There are ways, really advanced ways, to observe without creating the movement, but then you have to move your energy to your central channel. We're not there yet. So just, let's say, keep movement. Keep the movement, keep the interaction. You don't have to move like a maniac, but just some movement, some interaction helps stabilize. And other things that you can do is, for instance, lick the dream or taste anything, like put your hands on something, or like explore, just some stabilizing tips. So then we go into Chöd practice, which is pure observation. And here we go into the second chakra. So pure observation, directly encountering the habits, projections, and unconscious patterns that shape our experience. So this stage brings our karmic traces, karmic patterns into the light of our awareness. So we are really observing here. So this is a gateway where all the other stages can naturally appear. So I had a Tibetan monk, Norbu Rinpoche, come into my dream to teach me dream yoga. And basically for the first 5 years, this was the only practice that I got for 5 or maybe even longer, 6 years possibly. Observe, observe, observe. And in any strange scenario, don't interfere, just observe. And this can include exploring and going into the dream aspect. So that means the stabilizing one where we were before, we do need to keep stabilizing. So we're balancing yin and yang. So stillness and movement, receptivity and assertiveness. Let's see if there's something that I want to, So an example of a dream like this is, I once had a dream last year. I don't know if Aritz already arrived because I have, let's see, I can't see. No, I think he will watch the replay. Anyway, that this was last year. I had this amazing lucid dream on which I sent a voice note to a friend of mine, Aritz. Somebody's washing corn in this dream, like corn, the crop, They're washing corn, and I become lucid. And I'm seeing this waterfall where the corn drops are kind of like being washed, and it's kind of like the dust is getting into the water, and I'm just observing it, and I realize I need to stabilize the dream. So I'm thinking, well, let me focus on the water. So I focus myself on the water, and I project myself into the water. And suddenly I'm transported into a multi-dimensional, beautiful, cosmic light landscape with all these orbs and circles and things. And I'm like, just looking at it, I'm like in pure awe. And it's so multi-dimensional that I can't even describe it. It's not three-dimensional. It's like, yeah, I can't put it into words. So I woke up thinking about crop circles. Because they were washing the crops and the grains. And then I was like in this like cosmic landscape that looked like crop circles. And then I made a drawing of it. And actually the next day, I have a picture of this. The next day, so this was August 7, 2024, I had that dream. This is my drawing of the crop circle as I could, because I remember sending a message to my friend like, I don't know how to draw this in 2D. It's so complicated because I don't even know where to begin. So I just drew one like slice of it. And then the next day, a crop circle appeared, which I recognized as another slice, a two-dimensional slice of the same shape that I saw. And then I looked into that same space, the Etchell, Hampton, Wiltshire, if there were more crop circles in the same place. And lo and behold, on August 8th, 2022, there was another one that looked like this. That was also another cross-section of the same shape. And August 10, 2018, another cross-section of the same space. So this is the crazy stuff that can already happen with pure observation. So now we go into transformation. So now we are in the solar plexus chakra. So the solar plexus chakra is really about our will. So we are working directly with karmic traces and transforming the dream aspects by will, changing their forms and responses. So that means that in a dream, we can, for instance, expand and brighten the whole dream landscape. We can just once we are lucid, we can decide, all right, how far can I see? How far is this landscape? Okay, I'm gonna make it 10 meters farther or infinitely further, or I'm gonna contract it, or I'm gonna make it more bright, or I'm gonna take a little bit of the light out. Or something that's unpleasant, I will turn it into something pleasant. Or something that's pleasant, I will turn it into something unpleasant. So imagine there's a horse in your dream, you become lucid, and then you say, all right, I intend to transform this horse into a dragon, or an apple into a tree, for instance. So this is really a more advanced practice of lucidity. But yeah, this is definitely possible once we get to stabilize and have our nervous system capacity at hand. So here we are in the heart chakra. And one thing I want to note about this, it's not like we start here, then we go here, then we go here, and then we go here. It's not like that, because sometimes, for instance, with this specific ray of the spectrum, as I explained before, in the second chakra, the exploring phase and saying like, what does this represent? It's the both. So the spectrum mixes, and you get to experience sometimes in one dream multiple rays of one spectrum. You can experience this one, then experience this one, then not be lucid at all for a long time, which is very normal. So for this ray, the word courage comes from kor, which means heart. So courage really is something that has to do with the heart, because it begins with compassion. So it's not a strength-based thing. Courage is not about physical bravery, but it's really about a deep connection to the heart through compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. So that's basically that dream that I explained about the monster is really an example of that. So when we encounter something that brings us fear in a dream, how to work with it, how to interact with it, and how can we face it, and how can we even perhaps get a gift from it, instead of running away from it. So that really requires courage, but also pure observation first, because we're not just gonna go and run into the arms of some demon before we observe what's going on. So that observation really is a important practice. So next we are in the throat chakra. So in the throat chakra, this is about self-expression of the soul and an expanded perception. So in this ray, we can start to intentionally generate or multiply ourselves in new forms in the dream. So we can train the capacity to shape experience rather than be shaped by it. We transform into different perspectives, and we experience the fluidity and even non-existence of the dream body. This practice applies to conscious incarnation as well. So this is how we express ourselves, or how we choose to express ourselves, because I think a lot of times we express ourselves in a way that is not conscious, but here we really consciously express ourselves, and take also multiple perspectives. So one example that I can give of this is that this happened actually not so long ago, maybe 3-4 months ago. My dream yoga teacher, Norbu Rinpoche, came into my dream to teach, because that's his style of teaching. And he gave me an exercise to meditate on the Tangka. Tangka is a painting, a Tibetan painting, of the Buddha in the center with the peaceful and wrathful deities around. So I sat there meditating, and while I was meditating, or quite rapidly actually, because normally when he shows up, I become lucid already, because it's like, oh, it's my dream teacher. Oh, so this is a dream. So I have the perspective of myself meditating on the Tangka, but also I am aware of the fact that I'm sleeping, and I know the position that my body has. Meanwhile, that I'm meditating, my dreams are starting. So I have another perspective in which I'm having a regular dream, like a regular karma dream. So I'm still meditating. I'm also having the dream. Then the dream ends at some point. There's the black face. I'm also aware of the black face, but I'm also still meditating on the Tangka and still aware of the fact that I have my body. Then a new dream comes. And even in that dream, I'm taking another perspective. This gets really wild. So I'm taking the perspective. I have the perspective of the one who's acting, but also an observer. So this seems really like tiring, or like, oh my God. But actually, it's not tiring at all. It's actually, if you've ever had an experience like that, perhaps in a lucid dream, or perhaps with psychedelics, having multiple perspectives actually is effortless. It's not difficult, and it is very possible, and it is not. It's also not difficult to gather the information somehow. It's just a different way of having awareness. So that is something that is part of this throat chakra array of the spectrum of lucidity. All right, so now we're going to more advanced practices, and I am giving a little side note on the ego. So without ego, without a healthy ego, or without any ego, also an unhealthy ego, our immune system wouldn't work. All right, so ego is what's inside and what's outside, and the differentiation between that. If we didn't have ego, we wouldn't have a functioning immune system. We could also say that ego is the immune system of the spirit, of the consciousness. of the light body. So ego is the ability to discern self from other. So you have to be somebody before you can become nobody. So for this unity consciousness practices, you first need to understand who you are. Otherwise, you don't obtain enlightenment, you obtain psychosis. So this is a really important side note. And actually, Jung also wrote something about that. The greatest tragedy of the human experience is that we are compelled to seek the light of consciousness and yet remain unaware of the darkest corners of our own psyche. And one other thing that he wrote, I remember that he wrote that, but I couldn't find the quote. So I don't know which book it was, but I'm totally paraphrasing here. Something along the lines of, if you are doing advanced spiritual practices and becoming enlightened, but you haven't worked on your ego, you haven't gotten your ego under control, your ego will become out of proportion, like super ego, and it will be extremely dangerous and impactful. And I think I know some, well, not personally, but I know of some spiritual teachers who I definitely see that happens with, like the guy who was mentioned in the Epstein files. What's his name? I don't remember it. I don't care about his name. Anyway, there's this very famous spiritual teacher who's in the Epstein files looking for young girls, and there are so many examples of that. That yes, of course, their spiritual practices are valid and their teachings usually make a lot of sense. But side note, they haven't gotten their ego under control. They haven't created a healthy relationship with their ego. So what happens? It gets totally out of control and it becomes very, very dangerous. So yeah, that's why these other rays of the spectrum, let's say, do really include the work on nervous system capacity and really inner parts work and working with our shadows before we go and shoot out, let's say. So imagine we have a healthy relationship with our ego. Then we go to this ray of the spectrum, which is merging with other dream beings. By inhabiting another's experience, especially someone who is difficult or unfamiliar, we develop genuine empathy and expand the boundaries of self. This intentional practice trains the capacity to meet others in dreams, in life, and at death with presence, compassion, and responsiveness. So this is really, something that we can practice also in a daytime practice with, for instance, dream constellations, where we become different parts of our dreams, especially the parts that we have difficulty with, the parts that we are like, oh, I don't want to see that. But then what happens when I become it? And we notice quite quickly if there's any power in it, the body shifts and we feel more open. We start to sit up straight and it's like, oh, like for instance, if I'm being robbed in a dream, and I'm like running away from the robber and I'm trying to get my stuff back, perhaps in a constellation, when I actually become the robber, I feel a lot more powerful. I'm like, oh, well, he gets what he wants. And I let myself being robbed. Like, this is my normal way of being is letting myself be robbed. That doesn't mean that you need to now become a robber and steal stuff from other people, but there's an energy there. There's an energy there of deserving, of feeling like you're worth it, that is balancing out the feeling of being robbed and being taken from, let's say. So there is a balancing that can happen there. It can be really, really transformative actually to go into these other perspectives. And especially it's very powerful if we can do that within a dream, where we can really, really take that perspective and really, get the full download of what that means to be the other thing. So the next one is cultivating the subtle dream body. So this is about the bioactivity of attention. So this is what I was talking about before, that basically all of the spiritual practices say we have to be present, we have to be here now. That's the only thing that matters, being in the now. So why is that so important? Because attention, when we put our attention in the now, is bioactive. So it changes our frequency, our field, but actually we can also feel it in our body. And it's what we use when we do Reiki and those sorts of things. So that's where energy can become a shareable wave, let's say. So as prana is refined, the dream body becomes more coherent, luminous, and mobile. You can now voluntarily astral travel. So this is absolutely not recommended when you have not, worked on where you've still got a lot of, like, let's say, karmic dreams, a lot of stressful things happening. Probably it's not the best idea to go in astral travel, I would say. I wouldn't recommend it. Becoming a shareable wave, finding termas, light language spaces, Akashic records, connecting to dreams of other people. So this is how my teacher teaches in my dreams. So he is able to do this, and he has cultivated the subtle dream body, and his practice is teaching in other people's dreams. So how to know if you're astral traveling or having an out-of-body experience, let's say, or if it's a regular dream, you can tell because the normal lucidity checks won't work. So spin and you're in the same space and you can read. Involuntary OBEs, such as near-death experience, are not dream yoga. So I've had a bunch of those as a child. And out-of-body experiences that are involuntary, they definitely have given me the insight of, okay, so this is possible. I know what it's like. I have experience with that. But obviously it's not dream yoga. It's kind of accidental astral travel, and getting the hell back to my body as fast as I can. This is something that you can practice, and it is possible. But to take a lot of care with that. It's not something really to play around with. Well, it is something to play around with once you have your energy field very strong. But not while we are still like in the mud of our subconscious traumas and all of that. It's that way our astral body is too heavy, let's say, and we could attract things that might not be super welcome. All right. So now let's see how we're all doing. Are we okay? Hello. Yes. All right, great. All right. Now we are moving to the last three stages, where we go from Vajrayana Tantra to the Sahajayana. All right. So we're going from transformation to liberation. Here we go to the Yidam practice. And this is something that was mentioned earlier. And Yagama, who also was supposed to join the call, I don't know if she's already here, but she emailed me about this today, the Chöd practice. I actually took it out of the PDF now because I was like, well, why would I share about that if I'm not practicing it yet? But I know that it's a valid practice that can be practiced within the Yidam, like the Luminosity yoga. But the Chöd practice is a part of this, the one that we were talking about, of offering the body to those that we have karmic debts to. And supposedly, from what I hear, it's very, very healing. But yeah, who knows? I haven't practiced it yet, so I can't speak from experience. So this includes meditation on peaceful deities, wrathful deities, and the neither peaceful nor wrathful deities. So this is the Tangka. Or not the Tangka, but a Tangka. similar to the one that I was meditating on in my dream with Norbu Rinpoche, when I had all the different perspectives. And what I realized, by the way, after waking up and after processing the dream a little bit and talking about it with some people, I just realized that I hadn't meditated on the entire Tangka because of the fact I was aware that it's a dream. And I was so afraid of the wrathful deities that are like down there. So I only focused on the Buddha. I was like, all right, I'm just going to look at the Buddha while I meditate, you know? So anyway, later I printed one out, and I'm now like daring to face also the other aspects, because, you know, the story about Tankas is a lot of people think in the West that these are like the enemies of Buddha and these are like his cohorts or whatever, and that's the Buddha. But actually, all of these are the Buddha. They're all different aspects of the Buddha. So they're not different. This is all Buddha. The whole thing is Buddha. So these are our inner demons also, like our inner control freak, our inner escapee, all of those little demons, let's say, that we have inside, or let's not call them demons because they're like frozen inner children that need love, you know. So they are not different from us. They're still part of us. So these Tankas include that wholeness, which I find really beautiful. It's very far away from a spiritual bypass. To meditate on these deities is a way to obtain common cities, which are, in normal language, in English language, supernatural powers. They are byproducts of deep spiritual progress. And it involves direct, often poetic and antinomian or psychomagical practices. And here are those practices that are the Chöd practice, for instance, could be part of this, but psychomagical practices as well, like Jodorowsky. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. And one practice that I like to do is the overcoming shame game, where we just, I think I mentioned that before, where we see if we can do something that normally we think like, oh, people are going to think crazy of me. Like, for instance, when the bell rings, just make a random movement and don't explain why you did that, and just sit there and enjoy the responses, you know. And it's very liberating to be able to do that. So anyway, it's an invitation to like do a daytime practice of this. So the next one is the non-REM awareness. So this is sleep yoga and luminosity yoga. Staying conscious during the non-REM phase of sleep. REM means rapid eye movement. So that's when we're dreaming. We have our eyes go like this. And when we're in the deep sleep phase, it's like the black phase, let's say, of the dream. That's the non-REM phase of the sleep, in the space between the dreams. So in those spaces, we can have temporary clear light experiences, and our brain waves can go down to 0 hertz brain waves. Thoughts and images can still arise and dissolve without manipulation in lucid consciousness. And here we are realizing the inseparability of appearance and emptiness. So I had an experience of this, I would say 3 times I had an experience of this, of being lucid during non-REM awareness. The first time that it happened, it was totally spontaneous. And I was lucid before in a dream, and I just stayed lucid during the black phase, which hadn't happened before. And then at the end of that black phase, a voice came through, and the voice said, 0 hertz is the most healing brainwave of all the brainwaves. And then I started Googling that, and lo and behold, apparently it's true. It's super restorative, 0 hertz brainwaves. And we can get there in sleep. Not everybody gets 0 hertz brainwaves in sleep, but some people do. And that also made me think about brain transplants, because, you know, when people are declared brain dead, they're declared brain dead because their brain is in 0 hertz. But actually, that's the restorative phase. So if the heart's still beating and the breath is still going and their brain is in 0 hertz, they're restoring. They're like uber restoring. Like, there's no more restorative than that. So that's something that I find really important to share, because that was like a transmission that came through in that phase. Another time that I was in that phase, I was guided by my oversoul, who I also didn't know what is an oversoul, but my oversoul showed up in a dream and was like, "Hey, I'm your oversoul. Let me teach you some things." So they basically coached me to stay lucid through the black phase. So I had a lot of help there. And the other time was in the dream that I shared about with Namkai Norbu, Rinpoche, with the meditation on the Tangka, where I had the multiple awarenesses going on, which also included the non-REM phase of sleep. So just a little bit of practice I have with this, and absolutely not stable yet. And now we go to the last one. Existential awareness, obtaining the supreme siddhi. Obviously, I'm there. I'm already enlightened. No, I'm absolutely kidding. I'm not there at all. Constant enlightenment, a clear light consciousness, directly being the nature of reality and the self beyond ordinary perception. So this is an example of this is, well, the Buddha, the enlightened masters, but also perhaps you've heard of stories of the Tibetan monks who are able to levitate, or who dissolve when they die. Their body becomes really small and then rainbows come out. And this is observed by a lot of people, or people who can, with their chi, they can manifest fire in their hands. So yeah, this is like really, really far out there. So I don't teach this because I'm not there. But this is I would say the last ray of lucidity. And you can see these pictures here below. I just want to go back. Here you see the yin yang symbol, which is the big polarity, the yin and the yang, the darkness and the light, and how they are interrelated. So you could make that into a torus. It actually is a perfect torus. You see how the energy flows there. So the enlightenment, it moves from the yin and the yang to, it stays the yin and the yang. So it includes the duality and the polarity, let's say. But it's just a more whole perspective. That's how I understand it. It doesn't negate, it doesn't say like, no, yin doesn't exist, yang doesn't exist, or whatever. No, yes, it exists, and it is all one. Like, there is no difference between it. So that is the pure realization. That is it on this, the rays of the spectrum of lucidity. And just to share about my upcoming course, what is covered there from this part. So one part that we've covered here is the night practice, but a day practice is also a big part of it. So cultivating quality presence, it starts on April 23rd. It's 13 weeks. What we cover there is this whole part of the spectrum, including daytime and nighttime practices. So this whole part of the spectrum is included. The one that comes after that is building on this one, deconditioning to wholeness. And there we are going from lucidity. So we don't need to do these ones double, but we do definitely need to practice this a lot more. We're going into the 11th ray, And there we are doing some practices with direct experiences of awakening. And then the next one on January 7th is also building on this one. So if you do this one, you can do either one of these. The Great Oneness, there we are also going from here to there. So there's different practices that are done to profound these practices. So that's it. I'm going to stop my screen share, and I am going to open up the floor for questions. And let's see. Yes, there we go. All right, and I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you all, and now we're gonna do the Q&A.